Shut up and sit down.
Hi everybody, we're back. Another episode. Tech Art by Goose Daddy. So I know we've had a few weeks break from this, but we've been working on a few other things. And we're back. And to be fair, we're back in style. This episode, we sat down with Art Navarez, the Chief Technology Officer for a company called BPU Holdings. And we talk about what they're doing in a field called Artificial Emotional Intelligence. Rather than me waffling on and talking about it, how about we just jump in and hear what the expert has to say. Alright, let's do it. We're here talking to Art Navarez, the Chief Technology Officer of BP Holdings. They have a couple of new products that they want to talk to us about, and I'm just going to let Art introduce himself and we'll go from there. So, nice to have you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I'm pleased to be awake for this. It's a little bit late in Seoul, South Korea, where BPU Holdings is hosted. We have our headquarters here. We have offices in Bosnia and in a couple of places in the U.S. We're a little spread. We created the company a few years ago. It's actually sort of new, we wanted to look after something that I thought was significantly different from what's been done in the past. At the time, we wanted to coin the artificial emotional intelligence term. And we started with the tagline, teaching the machine to feel, because ultimately we wanted to be able to have some way of teaching artificial intelligence something akin to human emotional intelligence.
Okay. Now, just out of curiosity, because I know a lot of people hear robots with emotions or emotional intelligence for artificial intelligence and go, oh my God, what's that? As such. So what is the difference between, we'll say, standard artificial intelligence and artificial emotional intelligence?
Well, so, I think our ultimate goal is far from where we are today. So I don't want you to confuse the dream with the reality today. Today, the term emotional intelligence for us is basically the basic detection through AI of human emotion. Things like sentiment analysis in natural language, things like you said, facial recognition, possibly voice for certain, right now, really the hurdle, the initial main hurdle, which I think a lot of us are picking up the solution, is how to explain, how to depict the emotion in mathematical models and algorithms.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, I can imagine.
But that is basically the difference. Is in my mind, AI is purely about logic and rules and things like that, whereas AI uses information about emotion or maybe emotional context of a situation to make the decision beyond purely just logic.
Okay. No, that makes really perfect sense. So essentially AI is understanding for specific tasks, whereas emotional intelligence is more understanding the person to predict an outcome. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah, I think our Chief Strategy Officer, Craig Burton, would say that AI is about synthesizing the human brain, and EI is about synthesis of emotions.
Okay, I'm totally quoting that back later.
Well, that we are trying to simulate the way we're writing AI is by trying to emulate how humans process, how our brain processes problems, how it moves through problems.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with EI, we're trying now to simulate emotion and how we use emotions in our way of thinking and our way of behaving.
No, that's cool. And how then are you applying this to the product? Even just to give a background on the product, it's a
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just one product, and there's sort of layers to the product, if you will. We started first with a very simple sentiment analysis tool. Basically, it tells you whether somebody is positive or negative about something.
Okay.
Very, very, very simple. So by analyzing language, we can tell you whether a particular sentence is positive towards something or negative towards that, or neutral.
Okay.
And so that allows us just the basics of positive versus negative. After that, and with that technology, we created basically a search engine that augments something like Naver or Google. Naver is Korea's Google. So like Google or Facebook or some other social engine or even search engine, and we can analyze their results and tell you, instead of saying, find me, type in Volkswagen for a search term, then you can say, find me positive articles about Volkswagen, or find me things that are 75% positive. You can give me about it. You can also use several terms.
No.
So using that technology, we wrote the basic search engine, and then based on that search, we've created a political analysis tool. Was our first product. With this political analysis tool, we find that it's fairly easy to look at political elections, and it's interesting to make forecasting based on that emotional analysis.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive, especially considering the global political landscape at the moment. And I know that.
Exactly.
Oh, I don't even want to get into it between. Oh God.
So it's really fun. We created for the first version we created for the Korean presidential election for President Moon Jae-in, he with his election, we definitely beat the pollsters, in terms of speed. I mean, we released our predictions for the election the morning of the election, so before they actually were voting. And then, because we wanted to prove that, look, we did predict the outcome. And it didn't just predict who was going to win it. It took all the candidates and correctly ranked them in how they would come out of the election, and I think the worst margin of error was less than 3%. So it was very, very accurate. I think I don't know that the accuracy came fully from the tool. Some of it has to do that. I think in terms of Koreans seem a little bit homogeneous in their opinions sometimes, particularly socially. So it's fairly easy to
try and translate
guess.
Yeah.
But outside of that, we've been testing with different elections in the U.S. and we're getting not as accurate, but still, correct results in terms of, and yes, and in terms of guessing who's going to win.
That's actually really curious, especially because I don't know if you knew, but the Irish presidential election was only done about, just over a week or two ago now at this stage. And we had a candidate that was doing the the usual, screaming and shouting discriminatory stuff, trying to get attention when he was a nobody candidate, and he ended up getting a bigger chunk of the poll than people, I think, predicted in the first place. And even then, so it would have been amazing to catch you about a month ago and see what way you would have ranked them.
It would have been awesome, because what the tool does, I think the forecasting of the voting is okay. Personally, people are going to vote, and so to me, trying to guess how they're going to vote is not. It's not key to the outcome. What I really think is key to the tool is that it really identifies the key things driving the campaigns through the election process. So, like all the key political discussions, because we tend to drive up at Twitter. We get a lot of very opinionated people.
Yeah.
And sure enough, there's enough political machinery out there putting out Twitter and posts and other social media, and so we go through the post, we evaluate them, and then we give you a nice roadmap that says, these are the key campaign terms that are driving your constituency. These are what people are angry about. This is what they're happy about. This is how that candidate's name is related to these. And so we think that it's very close to expressing the true sentiment of the people. And we have been hoping to get it into more hands out there than are using it. But I think one of the things that I feel that we're going to introduce with the next release is we're going to introduce a tool so that the voters can download an app and be more actively participating in the discussion.
Okay, that's really interesting. And just on that point that you said a second ago about being able to understand the positive and negative aspects of somebody's constituency, is there a possibility then that information could be given to the politicians so that they have a better understanding of the people who are voting for them, so they can maybe, modify what they're looking to achieve and, actually streamline their campaign properly, which might be...
That is exactly the purpose of the tool, is so, these candidates, is if the claim is that I want to represent my people, well, here's a tool that really is good at telling you what people are saying out there, and I think people tend to be more candid on social media than on other than even if you call them and you ask them how do you feel about something. I think in social media people tend to just flame people and just let it go and say exactly how they're thinking. Yeah. So I think that's been one of the reasons why I think we are so accurate in terms of guessing where people are in regards to any one issue.
That's actually, I think that's really impressive, especially with the way the world is at the moment with politics. So many more people are interested in politics. As you said, Twitter is just a goldfish bowl of opinions, and it can be hard for, as you said, the politician and the people to really, sift through this and understand what's what. So a tool like that, where a politician can look and go, here's what my people want. Here's what
exactly.
It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I can tell you about 20 politicians in Ireland now who'd hear that and go, oh God.
Exactly. That's my point. We're a little too honest for most, I imagine.
Exactly. Well, that's their problem.
But, in the same, in that venue, we're taking the tool and making the dashboard a little more broad, so that you could use it for other purposes, not just politics, right? You can use anybody's name with any kind of topic, and it can give you not just an overall monitor of how people are feeling, but it could also give you which is one of the things I really enjoy is related terms. Because sometimes, for example, let's say I'm looking up Donald Trump today. If I look immigration reform, I will probably find that everybody probably, or a large majority of the Americans, are just not on board with him in terms of immigration reform. But the tool then finds out what are the nearest related topics to immigration reform. And so sometimes looking at those second and third degrees of separation in terms of terms also gives us an idea that people are worried about something very specific about immigration reform. It may not even be that they're in general worried about it, but they're worried about something very specific. And so we think in terms of brand management, things like other public figures, artists, they might also find this type of management, this type of reporting useful. So we're in the process of refactoring the tool, so it's not just about politics, but it's more broad.
So, for example, a company could pick it up and do a sentiment analysis on themselves, or an understanding to get an understanding of what people think of their brand or how they operate.
Correct.
Cool.
And to be fair, there's other companies that have sentiment analysis tools. I think for us, this is all we do, whereas other people are just doing it as part of something else. For us, it is key to understand, like I said, emotion. And so all our research is going into it. So that's the first app. The second app that we created is iMay. And iMay is an app for regular people. Its goal is really to explore emotional intelligence. And EI is about four things. The first thing is about to learn about yourself, discover yourself. To improve yourself is the second thing. To discover your relationships is the third thing. And then to improve your relationships is the fourth thing. So we created an app that is today focused on the first goal, right? The first goal, which is to discover yourself.
Cool.
And we've got maybe 100,000 users. It's not massive, but we have done zero advertising, and so we think that it's picking up speed and on its own. And since the first release of iMay, we have now found a group of researchers at the University of Arizona, and they're wanting to use the underpinnings, the framework underneath iMay to build medical applications.
Yes, this is the part I was reading about that I looked at and went, this is very, very interesting. So,
and iMay, in that regard, what they liked about iMay is that we started with a notion of an app that, because it uses think of Messenger like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or any of these messengers, by using a messenger bot, we mimic a human on the other side, and so it gives us that ability, that interactivity that you get with a human. And so, when in this case, we've supplemented iMay with voice. So there's a voice recognition module. The first version of the voice recognition is just simple. It understands what you're asking, and then it converts whatever she's replying and converts it to voice. And so, because we're dealing with patients that may not be able to see the screen or type or whatever, that makes it very useful. And the first goal is to create basically a nurse's assistant that can be used to do things that are super important but really boring. For example, there's a delirium test that nurses are supposed to administer so many times a day, but many times don't do it because they figure they can tell whether they've already seen the patient, they've already been able to determine whether they are suffering from it or not or whatever. And so many times they skip it. And many times when they administer it, they also can miss the response and sometimes might have some error. And so, the perfect thing for a bot is that it doesn't get tired, it doesn't get bored.
Exactly. Monotonous, repetitive
as you
tasks. It'll sift through that kind of... As I said, this was something I found very interesting because, strangely enough, a few members of my family who are nurses, and they'd be the first to tell you it's the part that the most draining part of the job is the 100, 200 times you're just doing the same task over and over again. And as you said, it can
over and over.
It's so easy to miss a response or to miss an action when you're looking at the same sheet of paper 200 times in a day. Just
exactly.
As you said, this.
And so we think that by supplementing the nurses that we're able to not just save a lot of money because it costs hospitals a lot of money when some of these little things get missed. But we're also able to proactively do things. So some of the things that we're working on there, we're working, I said, with the voice recognition. So there's a company right now that we're talking to that has the ability to emulate almost any voice. And so we're thinking particularly for mentally challenged patients, that recording their child's voice or their parent's voice, depending on whether you're a child or not, or someone familiar, that being able to synthesize that voice for them when I'm speaking, that it will create familiarity, it will make them relax, and it will help them get into a better state.
Of course, that idea of a soothing, understanding voice that as you said, the one voice that the person recognizes, they're more likely to engage with it or take it more seriously than, I suppose, the monotone Alexa voice or something like that.
Exactly. And so something like that, or initially I imagine that we're going to start simply by letting them pick male or female, some different tones and accents, and then from there we will expand. The researchers are also working on voice analysis so that we can tell when a person is in distress from the voice. I guess kind of like a lie detector, which that one could have various applications, including some fun ones in the dating scene.
We're not doing. No, that would go very, very badly wrong.
We thought it would be an interesting one. Of course, we have a lot of young PhD students working on this, so they come up with some of these very fun ideas. We're working with some doctors on. Right now, they have a patent on a heart variability measurement where they can, detect based on once they take your pattern and they understand your normal patterns of variability in your heart rate, they can then detect the onset of certain types of cardiac arrest or other symptoms with very, very good accuracy and 3 to 5 minutes ahead of time. And so that gives the app the ability to take somebody with a heart condition and talk them through a number of life-saving things they can do because they don't know the heart attack is coming.
Wow. So you can essentially the idea is to preempt the problem.
Correct. Yeah, the doctor was telling me, he goes, if I could talk to my patients 3 minutes before it happens, I can probably talk 95% through measures that would prevent any major damage. He goes, anywhere from go take a big gulp of water right now. He goes, the amount of liquid and oxygen that comes into your body can make a big difference. He goes, I could immediately start playing the right soft music for them, so get them to a less excitable state. He goes, whatever, there's a number of things that we can do.
Contacting first responders.
Yes.
Preempting that, saying this person's going to have a cardiac arrest problem within the next 3 minutes. Therefore, you can have the first responders already on the way. And I'm not a medical expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I'd imagine that in a situation like that, the difference of 2 minutes can save a life.
That's what they said. He told me, he goes, look, you can do miracles in 3 minutes in that particular instance. So they're also excited because with IME, you can prescribe an entire set of things to do, and IME will walk the patient through the whole thing, right? He told me, he goes, something that's very simple that most people can do in that situation is to do some very specific breathing exercises, and if I can get them started on the breathing, he goes, you may prevent the whole thing. And so, I'm not the expert. I sit there in these rooms with all these doctors, and they're talking about heart attacks and heart conditions and all this other stuff, and I can mimic what they say, but I wouldn't know the science behind it.
Yeah, we're the tech guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so we're working on that. The first thing that we'll release is one that deals with dementia. This helps. It's a fairly easy test, and it often goes on. The nurses just don't run it, but it's costing a lot, particularly in elderly care. It costs a lot of money when it's missed. We're coupling that with other research that's going on there. There's research going into this new type of microwave. I think it's microwave, but I might be wrong. But it's a new type of radar, basically, that detects very specifically using AI. It can identify people with the radar. So, if two people are sitting next to each other, it can tell the difference of one versus the other, of very small movements. So you can use this type of radar to monitor. Say you're in a hospital, you have so many beds, you don't want anybody getting out of bed without assistance. Anybody tries to move, you got them. This thing will immediately alert a nurse, or it will immediately say, "Hey, John, don't get up, buddy. You give me 2 seconds. I'll have a nurse there."
That's actually that's a big thing, especially as you said in the likes of the elderly homes.
Yeah,
and like just general care facilities for extreme cases. That kind of idea of being.
Well, and they're telling you, even with the not so elderly, people think that they're they're laying down for a long time. Their muscles may have weakened. They don't realize that, and they try to get up. They fall. They break something.
Yeah. Could you use that for Could you use that for people? We'll say I'm going to use myself as an example here. I managed to break my ankle in 3 places there over the summer, and I was obviously told bed rest, this, that and the other, and sure, naturally I went nah. I drove up to Dublin in the cast, went about my business, and then drove back. If I had something like that went, don't move, there's a reason why you were told not to move, maybe I wouldn't have caused myself extra hassle.
Exactly. As we were talking about that, particularly in the U.S., the insurance things are high, and so they want the patient to follow the rules because it's very expensive sometimes when people disobey the rules, and they still want the insurance to pay up.
Yeah.
And so insurance companies would love to be able to at least enforce the medical care so that it lowers some of the secondary damage that's created when people ignore the instructions. So anyway, right now, things that I can do that we demonstrated just this month is, like I said, we can use the voice, and right now it's the monotonic computer-like voice until we integrate with this other library, and then we're able to emulate more human voices. But even the current voice, after a little while, the patients seem to get used to it, and so now what they've asked us to do is to make her more conversational. The patients like talking to it.
Well, if you need Irish voices to take, I'll happily. Any of the Goose team are happily.
The model? Well, I got a model then. You got it.
Oh, I'm not. I haven't even got the most Irish accent of the team here. Trust me. We can get one of the boys from Kilkenny, and you'd be surprised.
I used to have a partner that was from a small place in Ireland, and I'll tell you, I had a hard time understanding him sometimes.
Oh,
he was very, very...
Do you know what part?
I don't remember, but he was a delightful guy, and we had a lot of fun. But we used to spend a lot of time laughing because I could not understand English.
It can be quite difficult.
So there again, the beauty is that the voice recognition is good enough to work through accents. So maybe the AI will have one over us. It will have a much better way to recognize the linguistics. So we're gonna do that. We're doing the voice. We're investigating the voice recognition for stress, so that if you triangulate a number of signals, let's say that I'm watching your Fitbit or your Apple Watch and watch the heart rate going up or down, and then all of a sudden I notice stress in your voice, then I've got two signals that there's something may not be right. So, as I said, now they're asking us to make IMA social. They want her to have social conversations with the patients because some of the patients really like talking to it. And so...
That actually kind of leads me up to the next question I'd have. In terms of the integration, would the idea be to have the app integrate with existing wearables, the likes of an Apple Watch or a smartwatch or a Fitbit or any of this, or would there be like a medical wearable as such where?
So far they requested the commercial versions. We discussed about whether right now they're telling me that the specifications for the commercial wearables, especially the new version of the Apple Watch and the Fitbits, those are as good or at equivalent specs to medical devices that they have there. Yep. The architecture of IMA allows you to think about of IMA as a brain out in the cloud somewhere. You can hook signals from anywhere, and it will integrate with them. So it's very easy to integrate and create other apps that for other reasons. Say maybe you need it for athletics or for something else. It could easily be a coach to help yell at you when you're at the gym, or tuck you to bed at night. Things like that. We built an interface for basically IoT devices, right? So if you have a smart refrigerator or a thermostat, lights, all that stuff, just like Alexa, in our case, we didn't make it specific to one type of control,
It's open to any.
I'm sorry?
It's more open than that, we'll say. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, it's more, I would say more broad. I wouldn't say more open, but it's broad in terms that we want to make it so that these universities, because we're now dealing with several of them, that these universities are able to interface whichever device they're using easily. And so So, like I said, we're dealing with watches and radar, with lights, controls for the TV, a few others, and in terms of processing, this is where having the AI is kind of cool, because a signal is a signal, whether it's coming from the human or a device. Underneath, we don't even distinguish. We just here's the signal. This is what the signal means. This is somebody who's going to, and this is a program that's going to handle that signal. We give it to the program. The program gives us a result. We give it back to the user in whatever form the user needs it. So it's a very, very simple framework, but I think that our goal really is to focus on just the emotional computing rather than on competing for domination of the IoT space or some of these other things. We really want to focus on the depth of emotional understanding, and the framework allows us a way to embed even other AIs. Say we want to interface with Alexa, we can do that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that is very cool.
So we think it's like, look, let's focus, and also you can replace our own AI with some other AI. And so somebody comes up with a better thing. Hey, my goal, my dream is to change the world, and I'm not going to do it by myself. So there's plenty of really smart people out there, and we want to enable people to do that.
Very interesting. No, I think that's incredible. One for you. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of them, but this is just to remind me of a crowd that I talked to a few weeks ago. They're enabled. They make 3D printed prosthetics for people. It's like an open source network around the world. Something like your platform could integrate with that to give feedback signals and all that kind of stuff easily, I'd assume.
Absolutely. Sure. I mean, if somebody wanted to build, say, build other sensors into their prosthetics and integrate the sensors into the application, rather than force them to write a complete application, we already have one that has enough other medical value that it's easy to bump in these scripts and say, hey, I want you to do this. Right now, we're working on the what I would call the chit-chatty parts of the AI, so that it can be more empathetic. If they don't remember that John has a brother, and a few days from now, I might say, hey, by the way, how's your brother? You say he fell, and like, oh yeah. So it's going to start mimicking much more human conversation,
relationship, understanding, and being able to interact with the person as a person rather than as an entity or a client as such. Makes a huge difference.
Exactly. It's not just a user; you become John. To that effect, one of the things that we are doing, which I think is also a little bit different than other people, is that we're building a very strong, secure identity model. Because, as you might imagine, there's a lot of regulations around medical information that we need to ensure that the right people can get to it, that just not anybody can hack this thing. So we're building a very strong layer of identity management, security, roles, access controls, roles-based management, so that you can use this thing securely. Wow. And one of those things is something that, so I'm going to blue sky for you for just a little bit, because this is sort of where the dream that got us started. We envisioned, and maybe I watched too much Black Mirror. We envisioned a future. we envisioned a future where there is such a device that you can give to a baby, and the AI will sit there and interact with the baby from the moment it's there, right? All the way, anything from allowing you to store pictures of the baby, to listen to the baby talk, record, monitor the changes. There's enough things like smart socks with babies now that will monitor your baby's heart rate, your breathing, things like that to prevent sudden infant death syndrome. And so, interfacing with those devices to also, not just give you a peace of mind, but also to keep a record of your child's breathing and heart rate and all this other stuff to show you how it's shaping over time as the child is growing to learn the words of the child is learning them, and to be able to mimic what the boy or the girl says and what the baby says and grow up with the baby. Basically an AI that forms its own vocabulary and its own biases and everything.
The person. That's madness. By
just following the baby through its entire life. Now, the interesting thing is that imagine what happens when a human dies when they leave something like this.
Yeah. So somebody like their children or whatever can have something with a record of them behind this. So.
Well, imagine if I'm having a problem, this thing is going to know how to talk to me conversationally, so I can go to this thing and say, "Hey, how's it going?" and ask them questions, and it will answer the way my father would have answered.
That's both brilliant and terrifying in equal measures.
So, anyway, we thought, if nothing else, having something that builds and retains a life record of someone would be amazing.
I think it definitely at the early ages, the application there is incredible. You obviously, things like asthma, you'd have a record of the breathing patterns for a 3-4 year period, and a doctor can go, okay, this kid has asthma. Or if a child is having difficulties or they're slow picking up words, they can understand that, okay, this is an early learning difficulty or whatever, and you can get that information in as soon as possible and fix the problem at the source.
And even, if the parents were to make, I know in my house, for every one of my children, there's a whole bunch of marks on the doors where their mom marked their growth and things like that. Now imagine that you have an AI that sits there, monitors your child's height and weight, and, it's able to actually ask you even more questions that might also help you determine, hey, you might be feeding your kid the wrong things. They're too heavy for their age right now. Or just give you hints so that as a parent, you can now interact more easily with your doctors and have a feedback mechanism that can give you so much information, including this continual monitor of your breathing and your heart rate and things like that.
So it can be like a doctor, a personal trainer, and your mother in your pocket all at the same time.
All at the same time.
Epic. That's essentially... Yeah, I think that's amazing. I don't think I have any other questions, unless there's anything that you would like to share.
No, as a company, for me, this is more than just a job. And a shareholder asked me not many weeks ago, if I'm in this for the long haul. And I'm like, this is not just a job for me. This is my life pursuit. If I wasn't doing it here, I'd still be doing it.
This is the dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, for me, it's fun. It's a passion. I don't see it as work. Some people go, hey, look, somebody just solved the problem you were trying to solve. I don't get jealous. I get excited. Just one less thing to worry about.
Exactly.
Yes, it's a commercial venture. You want to lead the market, but I think that the market is so massively large that even a few good products will result in major income for the shareholders. So in this case, I think my feeling is that we need to go for quality. We need to make sure that we do it right so that we don't end up with people's information all over the place and stuff like that. So We're taking our time to do it right.
Shut up and sit down.
And there you have it. That's it. He's an interesting guy, isn't he? They're working on some really cool stuff, I have to say. It'll be interesting to see where artificial emotional intelligence goes over the next couple of years. Let us know what you think. Send us a message on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of the usual social media channels. Just look for Goose. You'll be able to find us. Until next time, have a good one. Good night, good luck, good morning, goodbye. See you in a while.